If you or someone you know has diabetes, you may have built up an extra supply of test strips and lancets. That's where we come in. We'll buy the supplies that you don't need and resell them to those in need to prevent waste. Help us make diabetes management more affordable. Visit us at teststripswithaz.com.
All right, we have Tina Pettigrew on the show. She's going to return to action Friday night, February 7th at Invicta FC 39. She makes her organizational debut against Monica Franco live on UFC Fight Pass. Happy to have the Predator joining us on the show for the first time. Tina, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. You had your first pro fight last month. You'll have had one pro fight with Combate Americas, next one with Invicta. That's a pretty cool start to your pro career, getting to be on two pretty big platforms right off the bat, is it not?
Yeah, it is. And honestly, that was intentional.
That was intentional?
Yes. Yeah. So I wanted to do that. And I worked really hard to try to get a pro debut with Invicta or Combate. And then once I got signed with my managers, they really helped me make everything happen much more quickly than if I had tried myself.
Well, that's great. It's important to be aligned with the right people, and you've certainly done that. And what's interesting about you is going in and doing my research, you have not been at this MMA thing very long in terms of in competition. You made your amateur debut less than 2 years ago. So I'm curious how this journey began for you. What got you into the gym for the first time and got you to the point of saying, you know what, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight people.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that when you first do martial arts, I'll tell you what got me into martial arts in the first place, but I want to say this first. I think when you first try martial arts, a lot of people, the indicator about whether you should maybe do this is for you or not, is when you first get hit in the face. Because I think that when you're in a sparring situation, it's your very first time and you get hit in the face, you either you kind of know right away. Like if you want to fight back and that's your natural tendency and you are ready to go, then, maybe it's there for you. It's instinctively something good for you. So I kind of knew that, I guess, the first time I got hit in the face. But to rewind, before that, I was kind of like, I was in New York City at the time. This was, I don't even remember how long ago, 7, maybe 8 years ago. And I was working after I had gotten my master's degree at a nonprofit. And it wasn't the job's fault. It wasn't anybody in my life's fault, but I was like kind of depressed, not in a good place in my life. I just felt out of shape and I was like, what's going on? Like, I don't feel like myself, And over Christmas break, I watched a UFC fight, Alistair Overeem versus Brock Lesnar, with my family. And between fights, there was this woman that they interviewed that was in the audience wearing a cute leather jacket and a cute hat. And she had kind of a bob, cute hair. And they asked her prediction for the fight and about her upcoming movie and stuff like that. And I was like, who is this chick? She's so sweet. She's well-spoken. She's tough, obviously, beautiful. And I kind of saw some of myself in her. I was like, oh my goodness. She's not like some bulky, manly, not that that's a bad thing, but, rude, aggressive person, and she's a fighter. And it was Gina Carano. And I remember looking her up right after that, and I was just obsessively YouTubing her while I was on the bus in New York going from one place to another. I would avoid going underground on the train. I would stay on the bus just so I could watch her fights because I got service up there, And I just was obsessed with watching her. And she wasn't an active fighter at the time. So I was like, you know what, maybe I should try this. I saw some of myself in her, and I researched my kickboxing gyms in the area because, of course, she was a Muay Thai fighter. So I was like, well, let me try Muay Thai. And one thing led to another. I found this place called Evolution Muay Thai in New York City. I didn't try any other place. I did that trial class, and I just loved it so much that I was like, okay, I can belong here. And, one thing led to another. I think when a few weeks into training kickboxing, I was like, I could compete. I think that as an adult, I had sort of been conditioned to out of my own natural competitiveness. Like, this is something I learned through like self-exploration and therapy and stuff, whatever. And so when I started to embrace my natural competitiveness, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I have all these things going for me when it comes to the competition aspect of it. Why not?
That's
So that's
interesting.
when I start competing. Yeah. And honestly, one more thing, I remember watching, Ronda Rousey versus Kat Zingano too. It was in the winter in New York, and I didn't have any friends who watched MMA, so I was watching it alone. And I remember seeing it, and I literally was like, I could do that. Why are they doing that? And I'm here freezing my ass off, just watching it, And I was like, Tina, you're the only one to blame here. Like, if you want to do that, just make it work. Like, it's, that sounds simple, but, and that is definitely simplifying it. But basically I took accountability for the place I was, at that time, and started slowly but surely making changes to position myself to where I could compete.
Well, you're no longer freezing your ass off like I am. I'm in the Berkshires in Massachusetts freezing my ass off. You're in California now. How long did it take you from, having that conversation with yourself to getting to California, no longer freezing your ass off?
Great question. Let's see. Honestly, I think it took 2 years. So what happened too is, like, personal life, I ended up getting in a relationship and letting that distract me from the gym. I ended up getting really obsessed with my new job, which, I think is a legitimate thing. Like, I really loved my job, but I kind of ended up letting it stress me out. Like, I'm not perfect. It took me a long time, 2 years, I think.
So you're like me. When you get into something, you can't just tiptoe in there. You have to get all in there. I'm the same way. Like, when I get a job, or when I've had promotions and stuff, like, I dive right in and I give it everything I have, even if that means putting things to the back burner, which isn't always the best thing, but eventually you sort of figure it out and you find your path. And it sounds like that's what you did.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's a natural tendency of mine to be very intense about something that I care about.
So, as you've learned throughout this process, this sport is not for everybody. You talked about how a good sort of benchmark into learning whether this is for you is getting punched in the face. Mm-hmm. Some fighters, it takes a little while to get comfortable, to get acclimated to the sport itself. And I've talked to some fighters who got in there, got in the cage, got in the ring, and began their amateur careers maybe 0-4, 1-5, and then all of a sudden, boom, it just clicked. Something happened, and things would just take off, and they got on the path that they're on now. Besides the getting punched in the face part, which you obviously were okay with, was it a struggle early on for you to get acclimated to the crazy world of martial arts, or did you pick things up rather quickly? I mean, the results, at least early on, and even now, would suggest more of the latter.
Yeah, well, I think that, so when I first started training mixed martial arts, a lot of people think I'm a wrestler, but that was the last skill set that I learned. I didn't start to wrestle until, I don't even want to say what my age was when I started to wrestle, because people are going to be like, what? But like, no, I didn't have all the skill sets. I didn't understand a lot, but that's part of why I embraced it real fast, but I do think that even from my last amateur fight to my first pro fight, I had changed my schedule and my training, between those two times. You and I were speaking earlier. I had left my full-time job because I was like, I want to go pro. Like, if this is my job, it needs to be my job. I need to train like it's my job. I need to eat like it's my job. Like, it is my job. So once I had the ability, the time freed up where I could change my schedule, I started figuring things out even more, and I don't think that stops. The learning and the embracing the opportunities in front of you and doing things in a smarter way keeps happening. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think it is awkward at first. For me, the most awkward part in the beginning, like the hardest part in the beginning, was when I moved out here, getting people to believe in me, to invest their time in me, because who was I? I wasn't anybody. So what happens is, and I think a lot of fighters misunderstand this. It doesn't matter what gym you're at or like who you know or whatever. Like, if you don't have any competitive experience, or you have very little competitive experience, the only way to get people to pay attention to you is to put your time in. You have to be humble. You can't expect people who don't know you to hold pads for you or to corner you in a fight. What you need to do is go to the practices that they provide for you consistently every day, all the time, and keep showing up. Not just that, you have to put in extra work. No one's going to do bag work for you. No one's going to do cardio for you. You have to do those things on your own. And if you need more help than that, then ask for help. Don't go into it with a sense of entitlement. And I think that attitude has always served me. Like there's a friend of mine on the Alliance team, like we started becoming friends because we were the only people that showed up to the gym on Friday nights. Nobody wants to come to the gym on Friday night, but like I love martial arts and I need to get ahead. So of course I'm going to go on Friday night. I think that's a big detail that a lot of people who are first getting started don't really understand. And that work ethic carries with you the whole time. Like you can't stop that. It's not like, oh, I won this many fights or, oh, I'm champ or whatever. I'm just going to like let up on that. No, like you need to always put in more time than everyone else. Of course, without overtraining, which is a whole other issue.
Do you remember the moment when you felt like you were embraced by the team? I mean, Alliance is one of the top gyms in the world. A lot of great fighters have trained there. We've seen some of the names come out of that gym. It could take a while, like you said, to get that stamp of approval. Do you remember that moment when you kind of got that boost of confidence? You got that sort of stamp of approval from the team?
I mean, I think I still don't know that. I mean, I don't really know what's considered a stamp of approval, but I can say that after I won my pro debut recently, I did get a lot of positive feedback from the team. Everyone was really happy for me and really just genuinely excited, because I know that they had seen me come to the gym from straight from April to December, no holidays, no nothing, always there. So I'm sure they probably were really happy that I finally got the opportunity and it went well.
Well, there you go. So you make the decision to turn pro and you debut for Combate. Last month, you fought Maritza Sanchez in Stockton. You won that fight via first round submission, rear naked choke. What was that moment like for you when, you realize the fight's over, you win, pro debut's out of the way, you get your hand raised with a finish to boot. You make this decision to become a fighter, a professional fighter, and it all sort of paid off in that moment, at least, at this time in your career. What did that feel like for you?
You mean immediately after I got the finish?
Yeah.
Or after the fight? Immediately after I got the finish, I was pumped because I was like, this is my first submission. Because I really thought, because I had seen Maritza's fights before, and I knew that she was one of the toughest there is, and a lot of heart, just doesn't give up. I had seen her in our other fights be in really bad positions and get out of them. And so when I had the choke sunk in, I was like, you know what? I bet she's not going to tap. I bet I'm going to have to put her to sleep. So I was actually surprised that I felt the tap. And in the back, they tell you not to let go of a submission until the ref separates you, because they don't want any confusion about what a tap is or whatever. So when he tapped me and told me to get off, I was like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. I just got a choke. Oh my God. Because also my boyfriend is a really high level grappler, at least the way I see it. He's scary and has crazy skills, and his cardio is insane. Doesn't get a ton of credit because he's a smaller person, but especially since he's a smaller person, his game is to take people's back and to choke them. So I'm the one who gets choked most of the time. So for me to get the choke, I was like, ah. And also I know that a lot of people want to hear about the big picture, this is what this means in my life, and that stuff does matter. But at the end of the day, that was so satisfying to me because I've been working on my grappling several times a day since the beginning of the year. And so for me, the technical things that happened in that fight that helped me win it are all things that we've been working on a lot. So it was really satisfying. I was like, oh, the double reinforcement with the grip. Oh, the body lock wasn't perfect, but I sunk it in, and, things like that. So, yeah, it was really gratifying. Yeah. I was very happy. Because, people too, they ask about predictions for a fight. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Anything can happen, because anything can happen in a fight. Even if you have a losing record, that doesn't mean you're not a good fighter.
It's true.
You have to respect everybody. And when you win, that doesn't mean that you're like the better fighter overall necessarily. That means you won that night. That's all that means. So, yeah, it's just so nice to get something done that you came there to do.
I remember watching the weigh-ins for that fight, and you and Maritza are both staring at each other with a lot of focus, and then you both just start cracking up. Do you enjoy like the face-offs and all? Like, I would be eerily uncomfortable in that situation. Like, I'd probably be more like Sean O'Connell and have props and try to make it as loose and as funny as possible. What are those face-offs like for you? Is it awkward?
Great question. So my very first amateur fight ever, I mean mugged her like, whoa, because it was the first person that I fought that there was no tape on, but I knew she had won. So, and she had finished the fight with her first fight too. So I was like, all right, like I'm gonna go in here and just do my game, like make it work or whatever. And I was actually surprised when I met her. She was exactly the same body type as me. I was expecting her not to be as muscly and not to have as big legs. So that's one thing too, that the weigh-in is the first time, the face-off is the first time you see them physically in front of you. So you sort of size them up about like, if you could take them down, if you want to clinch, how long her reach is, that type of thing. And she told me that when I mean mugged her that it worked. So I don't know, I just kind of started doing that. Well, because the thing is too, you have to be mentally strong in every moment of before the fight, after the fight, like during, so to me, like being able to stare someone down is, a mental thing. And I do like to try to act mean there, but it's not like I'm angry at them or anything. It's just like all business, And so what happened with Marita though is when I was staring at her, I was like staring through her, trying to mean mug her or whatever. And then I noticed that her makeup looked really cute. And I wanted to say to her like, oh, cute makeup. And then I just like broke because I laughed. I was like, what are you doing? And then, of course, that was the moment for us to shake hands anyway. So it's all good. Like, it was all good sportsmanship and everything like that. Honestly, I was just also, too, when I got up on the stage there, I was just so excited for the opportunity. I didn't realize, like, how grateful I was to be able to make my pro debut on that stage until I literally got on the stage. And I was like, this is so cool. And so I even came up to her afterward and I was like, thank you so much for taking the fight. I'm so excited. This is a great opportunity. And she was very gracious. So honestly, I just, was so happy to be there. So that's what happened there.
So now you're going to face Monica Franco, who hasn't fought in a long time. Hasn't fought since August of 2015. She's 1-0 as a pro. She's from Hawaii. And a little MMA trivia for those watching right now. Angela Lee, the big star from One Championship, Angela's first amateur fight in 2014 was against Monica Franco. How about that? You had mentioned, watching film and stuff like that. I don't know how that's translated now in 2020, but did you know much about Monica when the name was offered to you? Were you able to find a lot on her?
I was, yeah. Well, she has a lot of fights. So I think she has 9 amateur fights. Yeah. And I think she might even have 2 pro fights, but the records aren't always accurate. Some people fight in places where, there's no video of it or there's no record of it. But yes, I did watch tape on her, and yes, I did see the fight with Angela Lee, and no, I did not know her name when they sent me her information. And I was surprised that I didn't, because I pay attention to my weight class, especially since I signed with Invicta. I'm paying attention to the Invicta women in my weight class. But I remember when they sent me her name, it sounded familiar, and it must have been because she's fought a lot of really, really good people. She's from Hawaii, and a lot of those fighters are no joke, and most of those fighters are no joke. And so, yeah, she's fought a lot of really high level people in her amateur days. So yeah.
So this
is I know about her now.
This is a multi-fight deal with Invicta. You're signed beyond February 7th, right?
Correct. Yes, a 4-fight deal.
Nice.
Yeah.
One pro fight and you get a 4-fight deal with Invicta. Plus, like what I love about Invicta, first of all, they put on such exciting nights of fights. But what I like about them is they let your personalities shine as much as possible, especially like the ceremonial weigh-ins. The women are wearing costumes and they're really just expressing themselves the way they want to.
Yeah.
How do you like that aspect of it? Sort of being able to be yourself more. It's still a professional environment. You're eventually going to get in the cage and fight whoever you're fighting, Monica Franco or whoever it's going to be in the next 3 fights. But you get to showcase your personality a little bit more and sort of put yourself over in that way. Are you excited to do that?
Yeah, that's great. I love talking, and I am a people person, and I am extroverted, and I have nothing to hide. So any opportunity to show myself to the world, I'm happy about.
There you go. Talk about who you're going to be working with to get you ready for this one. Like, I know you're at Alliance, one of your gyms, and there's a ton of talent there. This day, you know, being part of a team or multiple teams, there's always people around the gym. But are there any teammates or coaches in particular you work with more than others? I know you mentioned your boyfriend to get you ready for this fight in a little under a month's time.
Yeah. So it's the same team that I've been with, for a while now. My boyfriend is a training partner of mine that's like super duper, helps me a lot. I almost said crucial, vital, but that sounds like really dramatic. But yeah, my boyfriend kicks my ass a lot. I also have an awesome training partner named Danny Flores, who is like really under the radar, but is well-rounded everywhere. Really, really, scary. He's a 135er. I train a lot with Lauren Mueller on my team, who was signed with the UFC, who is about my size as well. She's also a beast. Of course, Angela Hill. She's the person that I knew when I came out here to San Diego, because I met her in New York City at Evolution Muay Thai, and she's always fighting. So she's just always in fight camp, always taking fights. So it's always good that she's in the gym. She's an awesome training partner. Dude, no one grinds like Angie. That is for sure. I have a few I have one training partner named Azima, who I train jujitsu with a lot every single day. She is my coach Eric's wife. They just recently moved here from Phuket a few months ago, so I train with her every day. She's an awesome training partner, very well-rounded. That's right now the main ones that I can think of. Oh, of course, Wilson Heiss, Danny Martinez also was an awesome mentor, training partner of mine, who actually just moved to South Carolina, which I'm really sad about, but I know he and his family are doing that for a great future. It's awesome for them, but I miss him. And then, of course, all the coaches at Alliance. I work with my coach Eric Aresk a lot on grappling for MMA, which is what I was saying earlier was so gratifying in that most recent fight, because we really focus on that a lot. We do a lot of problem solving in the gym. We do a lot of live goes in the gym, figuring things out. You know, I think grappling for MMA, a lot of people, is still really evolving in the world of MMA. There's a lot of things that a lot of high level people don't know that we're trying to figure out and like be dominant in that way. I work with my coach Dede on striking and game planning and stuff like that. I also have a really good coach named Adrian at a gym called Azteca Boxing here in San Diego. Fortunately, these are all geographically very close to each other. I think in my last amateur fight, the third round of that fight, my face got beat up a lot. And I think that a lot of people think that I don't have, based on that my boxing is like needs work. So that's something, including me. So I have been working on my boxing a lot since then with Coach Adrian. Yeah. And, you know, I cross-train sometimes too, go to other gyms. I mentioned on my last interview that I had recently about the women at 10th Planet. They come through to Alliance to give us good work, you know, stuff like that. I'm really open to cross-training and learning from new people with different styles and stuff. I think that's really super duper important. Yeah.
How does this all play out on February 7th? Not a prediction per se, because it's a new world now. I feel like the prediction game, the door is closing on that. But, you know, obviously you're not going to say Monica's going to beat you or anything like that. But besides getting the win, what are you looking to do at Invicta FC 39 to, I guess, introduce yourself to the organization and its fans? And, you know, prove something to yourself as a martial artist?
Yeah, great question. Pure dominance. Dominance and violence. I mean, I know that sounds simple, but that's what it's all about. I mean, it's so important to me to put forth my best performance, given every opportunity. And, we're just continuing to learn and grow and be more well-rounded and aggressive and dominant everywhere, every freaking where. In the cage, and we're going to do everything we can to put forth my best performance. Yeah.
I couldn't find this, and I know there's certain questions you don't ask women, but I'm going to ask you anyways.
Sure.
How old are you?
I am 33.
Okay.
Yeah. So earlier when I was like, I don't even want to say how old I am. When I first started wrestling, I don't think I started wrestling. I don't think I learned one takedown until I was 31 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy, right? But the thing is, I've had quite a few people mention my age in the world of MMA like it's not a good thing, and including people who are close to me, and I'm okay with that and I honestly feel like that's maybe my biggest insecurity as well. But listen, my boyfriend tells me stuff like this all the time. If I'm worried about something before a fight, he's like, "You're still fighting her. Why does that matter?" I'm still gonna fight. I found martial arts late in my life. I'm still going to fight. I'm still going to compete. I'm still going to have a career after fighting. I'm not worried about that stuff. I'm doing the best that I can. And honestly, I think that sort of outlook is an inspiration to people. How many people do you know that feel like it's too late for them to pursue their dreams? That's not true. And this literally could be the hardest thing to pick up late. With the most dire consequences. It could be really super duper embarrassing, especially for a woman. But you know how much I care? Zero. It's not theirs to decide. This is my life. I let other people tell me what to do and not do up until I found martial arts, and even through it a little bit, and yes, I'm going to listen to my coaches and experts and, people who have my interest in mind. But at the end of the day, I'm the person that goes to sleep with me at night. I can't live life with regrets. And I think in a lot of ways that plus my life experience up to this point, which is a whole other interview, give me an advantage. They really do. Every time, when I fought my pro debut just now, Tonga Gaston, who is my teammate who did the commentating and interviewed me afterward, he pulled me aside and he was like, "This looks like it's your sixth fight." The way that I performed exceeded my actual cage experience. And I got that same feedback for my amateur debut. It's because I have lived a life where I have had to embrace the unexpected on the fly often. That's something you can practice, being adaptable. And, lessons like that, I think you only get through life experience and through paying attention and, being smart about things. And, not that a 21-year-old can't do that type of thing, but I know that I'm developed in ways like that, a lot of younger fighters just aren't yet, because it takes time.
I like that. You're making me feel good about to open up my box a little bit. I'm 36, so I'm even older than you, so don't worry about that. I'm sniffing 40. I'll be 37 in a few weeks. But, I was a guy with a wife and I have a son, and, it's all about getting a full-time job and, just doing this. We got to put food on the table and everything. So me and my wife were kind of in a transition period. We're like, do we want to stay where we're at? Do we want to move and try something else? So we try to move and do something else. I had to go out by myself for about 6 months, about 4-hour drive away. And then after about 6 months away, we came to the conclusion, we can't do this anymore. I can't be away and stuff like that. So my wife asked me point blank, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? If you could do anything, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to cover the sport full time. I want to interview fighters full time. That's what I want to do. She's like, is there a lot of money in that? I'm like, no, there is not a lot of money in that. But I think there could be someday down the road if I keep just working at it. And she's like, go do it. So, I totally understand what you're saying, that it's never too late to go after what you want. I think that's an important lesson that everybody needs to learn.
Yeah. I mean, listen, what's the alternative?
You fail.
Right. Well, not just that. Well, listen,
Oh yeah.
if you take the risk to do something that maybe isn't bringing in a lot of money right now, okay, but you have a vision for yourself, okay, yeah, you're going to fail at certain steps along the way, but you're going to learn lessons, right? You're going to learn lessons that will educate your decision that will ultimately get to your goal, okay? But the alternative of not taking the risk is worse. Because what you're going to do is you're going to be living a life every day that makes you sad. You can try your best to convince yourself that what you're doing is for the best, but if you wake up with resistance to what you're going to do that day in your life in a big picture way, if you're like, oh, I don't want to go to work because I don't like the work I do, for example, like that's a big deal. And like that's also like for I want a family someday. A lot of people already have kids. That's not the right example for your kids either.
Right.
You know, like your kids, like a lot of times too, like parents have to make really smart decisions about like what they're providing for their kids versus how much time they're spending with their kids and stuff like that. And, you know, at the end of the day, the best gift you can give your children, other than actually being in their life, is to set a good example. Like they should be following their dreams too. And I know that resources are limited, but you know, them seeing you try your best to fulfill your goals is a really, really positive way to parent, in my opinion.
Plus,
you know, so good.
Plus, my wife likes that I'm home and I could take a lot of stuff off her plate. So if errands need to be run, or you know, I have to take my son to school and pick him up every day. That's one or two less things she has to do, and she loves that.
Yeah, and parenting's a full-time job. Let's just be clear about that. Like people can say whatever they want to say about working parents or stay-at-home parents, but taking care of kids is a big deal.
Yes. My kid is a firecracker. But in terms of your goals and stuff, like we're not looking past Monica. We're not looking past February 7th. But you know, it is a new year, and we reflect on the year that was, and we take strides towards our goals in the year that now is. So for you, what goals, what accomplishments are you striving for in 2020?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I have this planner that helps you plan your goals for the year. It asks you really smart questions about what your motivations and intentions are. And I haven't gotten it in the mail yet, so I'm just doing some rough drafts of the goals. But you know, I do have one big goal for this year. I would like to, honestly, I want to make 50% of my money through fighting, sponsorship and fighting right now. I think that a lot of people, that sounds like a boring goal, but that's a very realistic goal if you want fighting to be your main source of income at some point. And this year is the year that I want at least half of it to come from that. So that's one. Another big one is, you know, I do think I could make it to the UFC this year. Before the end of the calendar year. If that doesn't happen, I'm definitely okay with it. There's a few reasons I've been thinking the UFC recently. The main reason is they do in competition and out of competition testing. And it's really important to me that people are juicing because it's more of an issue than people like to think. So that's a big one. But if another opportunity comes along that is lucrative enough and challenging enough for me, as a fighter, other than the UFC, I definitely would be open to that. But what that goal represents to me is that I am fighting high-level competition that will really advance my career. It's like in my opinion, it's like the equivalent of someone in the business world putting themselves up for a promotion, which means bigger challenges, but also bigger money and more opportunities. That's what that represents to me.
Well said. That is a 33-year-old answer right there, and I love that.
Can't deny it. That's my age.
There you go. There you go. I dig that. You know, sometimes you hear these predictions and these outlooks, and you're just like, I appreciate what you're saying, but probably not realistic. But you're looking at it from a very realistic point of view. But you're also setting goals that may be attainable, but they're going to be a challenge to get there, and I think that's important.
It is important to challenge yourself. Because otherwise you'll never know what you're capable of.
I couldn't agree with that more. But the road to those goals all starts on February 7th at Invicta 39 on UFC Fight Pass. Tina Pettigrew taking on Monica Franco in the home of Invicta, Kansas City, Kansas. Looking forward to the event. Invicta always puts on great nights of fights. Great stuff, Tina. Appreciate the time. Could do this for another hour with you, and we'll have to do it again down the road after this fight. But before we let you go, I want to give you the opportunity to let the folks know where they can find and follow you on the web, social media, any shout outs, anything else you want to get off your chest. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Tina Pettigrew. You can find me on Instagram at Tina Pettigrew _. You can also find me on Facebook at Tina the Predator Pettigrew. Oh gosh, that's a long one, huh? I feel bad for those ring announcers. So Facebook is Tina the Predator Pettigrew. I would like to thank my sponsor, Genesis Recovery. We're this for a reason. They do really awesome work. I really appreciate all of their support of me. I also want to thank my mom's business. She does pet portraits, custom pet portraits by Deb. So if you just look up pastelsbydeb.com, she'll do a custom portrait for you, not just pets, you know, all kinds of interesting stuff, whatever you're maybe looking for. I would like to thank Casa de Coronados Cafe. They're the best breakfast in Tijuana. Thank you so much for your support. They're my longest standing sponsor, and that food is so delicious. The only problem with having them as a sponsor is that if I go there during fight camp, I don't know if I could deal with it because they have such healthy stuff, but they also have like waffles and, you know, shakes and stuff, and it just looks so good. Cinnamon rolls, my favorite. I'd also like to thank South Bay Cryo. They do cryotherapy in Chula Vista, which for a lot of people, they have to go like up to Point Loma and stuff. Cryotherapy in Chula Vista is awesome. Great people there. Veggielish is my meal prep company. They kick major butt. They're just killing it. They do custom veggie bowls. And then last but not least, Space Coast Botanicals is my CBD sponsor. You should really look into them, or I'm happy to make the connect if you use CBD or are interested in it, because the product that they have is just like way more effective than anything I've ever tried before. They really know what they're doing. They're a small business, but if things go right for them in the next year, I could see them really skyrocket. And they're local. They're from my hometown in Melbourne, Florida. So thank goodness I got connected with them, because I'm telling you, their products helped me through camp. They help me sleep better. They help me stress less. I know it might sound cliche, but I'm telling you, all you have to do is just try it once and you're going to be like, wow, this is the best. So thank you so much to them for their support too. I know that's a lot of stuff, but thank you for the opportunity to let me shout everybody out.
Absolutely. And thank you, Tina. Enjoyed this conversation very much. Happy New Year, and all the best to you in the rest of fight camp and in the fight itself on February 7th.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.